Hello and welcome to Will It Horse, where I'm going to take weapons from history and see how they work on horseback. I'm going to deliberately stick to stuff that isn't usually associated with use on horseback. So today, given my love of archery, we're going to look at the English longbow. Now, for the purposes of this English longbow is fractionally shorter than most of them. It is a relatively cheap fiberglass one, because I can do silly things with it and not worry about breaking it. So we're going to be finding out if this functions on a horse. Historical evidence for longbow on horseback, not a lot. There's a few references here and there in the odd text, usually more revolving around hunting than warfare. And obviously we are aware that there were raiders in France with both a horse and a bow. The two probably happened, but evidence-wise we are quite lacking. Is this because the English army was missing something? Probably not. Is this because longbow on horse doesn't work at all? Yeah, we're going to find out. So, without further ado, I'd better go get some equine assistance. Okay, and I'm back, and all horsed up with lovely Eddie. Testing the English longbow out, I had to at least use a British horse. For anyone interested, Eddie is a Clydesdale. And we're going to have a wander up the run, and I'm going to see what this is like to shoot off him. I'll start things off with a front shot, as that's the first one I can take. Get ready, mate. Okay, well, I've hit it. It's always an achievement with me with a longbow. Not my chosen style if I'm picking. So it's pretty straightforward. Let's try the back. I feel like this is going to be the worst. Yeah, I would be correct. Yep. Away we go. See what we can do. Well, 3 away. Didn't hit anything. Now, that last run was pretty challenging, I got to admit. Longbow, not my normal forte. Gonna try a slightly different technique. Got my arrows in my hand, wondering if I can get them off a bit quicker. Go like this. Okay, we're off. Not the easiest thing I've ever done. So, conclusion to longbow on horseback. Does it work? Yes. Short answer, it can be done. From walk to start with, it was actually relatively easy, even with a more stereotypical longbow technique. From the quiver, once I sped up, it's too slow by the standards of most horse archery styles. It felt very sluggish to get an arrow all the way from the quiver to here and then sort myself, because I've not got, when I do the same thing on this side, I can push. I've just got better balance from here. It's much harder to keep everything stable, which was the issue I was having on that first canter run. To show what I did, the second canter run, I sort of abandoned any idea of anything vaguely historical that may have happened and went, let's go for modern split finger, Mediterranean, whatever you want to refer to it, horse archery technique. So my arrow's in front of the bow. I've got my nice fan like this. Wrapped one, brought it through the bow and onto the strap. And then I shot with a slightly more twisted finger than I normally would to keep the arrow in place, rather than the more stereotypical longbow, nice flat hand, turn the hand over so that I've got a bit more control over that arrow. And this works. I am not the best at shooting off knuckle side of the bow. My default is generally thumb draw, so going over to this was a different experience. But it then worked. The longbow itself is quite clunky on a horse. It's long, and unlike the Yumi, because it is symmetrical, equally as long at the top as it is at the bottom, that bottom limb I was having to be very aware of in relation to my horse. So I was having to turn the bow over to avoid Eddie's bottom and Eddie's head. But will it horse? Absolutely. And I think it's a reasonable certainty at some point it has done. As a hunting weapon, absolutely, especially if you used quite a light poundage one. This is 60, which is a reasonable weight for me. It's not the heaviest I can pull, but it does notice. With a sort of 30, 40-pound bow, though, sort of nice small game hunting weight, I think you'd have been quite comfortable from horseback, even with the length to worry about, because the bow would just be generally lighter. I think a full-up, heavy kind of warbow poundage one would be quite challenging. Form is quite awkward with this, and very much falls apart a little bit. But one shot works quite well. The loading, for more stereotypical longbow style loading, isn't great on the back of a horse. This could be got around with other techniques, but if we assume it was a more stereotypical sort of load the arrow on the side and go, that's a lot to be thinking about on the horse with moving the bow up and down and things, and the bow is quite big to begin with, so I'd rather it wasn't moving that much. But generally speaking, fairly successful. If you were in a raiding or pass type scenario and only really wanted to shoot one arrow, I can absolutely see that it would still function. Form is challenging. It is harder to get the bow back. I'm fairly sure I wasn't a full draw on any of those shots, but I was at enough of a draw to send them to the target and hit with enough to make them stick. So that's something that can be overcome with just more practice. So will the longbow horse? Absolutely. I'll see you next time.